Unbelievable! Are you looking for a no-nonsense property and business podcast? Our mission is to provide jam-packed content straight to your ears, where we can add value and unpick the fluff in the industry. If this sounds like a bit of you, then strap in and hold tight for an episode with Heidi and Dan.
Oh, Dan's kicking straight off, Chris, with a with the recording, if that's right.
I hit record yesterday, so I thought if I just bang it on record, then we can get some, might get some stuff before the podcast. I can edit it anyway, but
maybe. Well, we've just tried to force Chris to have a cup of tea, and he won't. So that's how we'll start. Forced caffeine.
Yorkshire tea. It's going to be Yorkshire.
Do you know?
I
don't like Yorkshire tea, and that's very controversial. And I know your face; it's very controversial. I know, but I like a bit of Earl Grey.
Well, yeah.
I'm posh from Grimsby, you see.
True.
Do you two know each other? Shall I do a little intro between yourselves?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, let's do an intro. We haven't met or come across each other. Mine just frozen then, so hopefully it carried on working. Yeah,
definitely. Well, what I'll do is how I come across Chris is basically I stalked you on social media for a while, and then I thought, wouldn't it be good if he came to my PPN? And you did that much of a good talk that I've booked you for next year as well, which I don't normally do, but you did like a little thing on hypnosis where you basically did like quite a powerful set in the room. And I thought, because we're all northern and a bit Larry, we thought none of us would do it. And actually, a really nice video of everyone engaging in what you was doing. And I was like, shit, this is powerful. And then I obviously had a session with you, which I'll touch upon later. But that's how I don't know how I came across you on social media. I stalked you a little bit, so that's the story.
There's a bit of a theme here, Chris, right? We had a guest yesterday as well, and Heidi also stalked him. So, so I think she's just a mad stalker, to be honest.
Do I need a restraining order? Just yet.
I think I'm arrested one day.
You can make a decision on that by the end of the episode, yeah.
By the end, yeah. Jury's out.
Heidi will get us banned before we even kick the podcast off properly. A few episodes in, she'll get arrested, get banned, and I'll have no co-host.
You'll just have to put out of me and some chavvy northern person. But is it appropriate, Chris, to start with who are you? Professional question.
Who am I? Cool. So
tell us more.
My name is Chris Knight. I am a father of two boys, which is the most important thing in my life, I think. I am a clinical hypnotherapist and a change work coach, for want of a better word. I help entrepreneurs get better, improve in all areas of life. And I live in good old Sheffield.
Wow, nice. Another Sheffield person. I feel like we're just like clawing all the Sheffield people up.
We know so much about Sheffield now. We know so much about Sheffield now. Still City, Endo.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
Learned about that yesterday. So.
Yep, Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United.
Who do you support?
Yeah. I used to support Sheffield Wednesday years ago. I always support the winning team. I'm one of those people.
Oh.
Not great.
So I've been working for the past few years with entrepreneurs in improving their life. Having gone through a lot of the processes that I teach and work with personally, I decided to help other people do the same thing.
What sort of processes do you use?
I use a mixture of different things. Obviously, hypnosis is my preferred tool of choice due to its power. I also use portions of NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. I use a lot of intuitive coaching, which has really picked up. And I think intuitive coaching is one of those things where the more you work with people, that you understand people. The more you understand people, the quicker you can get and more efficient you can get at changing someone's life. And I think you're either one of those people or you're not. In essence, you can either do it or you can't. And I think it sort of chooses you rather than the work chooses you rather than you choosing the work as such. Is my great belief.
I'm going to go full diary of a CEO and Stephen Bartlett here. So, at the beginning of his podcast, he always talks about, the formative years. So there's always either one moment in your life or various moments in your life that lead you to the sort of the path that you're on. So, do you want to take us back and tell us more about young Chris?
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting story, I guess, to a lot of people, where I had a total breakdown when I was 13 years old. I was I was extremely introverted, always bullied throughout school, being the typical class nerd, as you used to get back in the day. And it got to the point in life where I just couldn't handle life in general, I don't think. Had my first breakdown at 13. Went to the doctors. The doctor said, can't really help you. It's your teenage years. He didn't know what to do. I had my parents who couldn't help me, really. They were just as confused as anybody else. And I decided that I needed to sort myself out. I needed to do the work myself. And it was basically the start of a 20-year process of learning about psychology, about the mind, about how we work, about improving myself. I was extremely ill. A noise has just stopped then.
Yeah, I literally just messaged Heidi. Yeah,
I'm gonna mute myself for a minute.
Yeah,
all right. I was extremely ill growing up, with stress-related illnesses, and I just didn't know how to handle life in a nutshell. And there was lots of separate things along the way. But as I've got older, the different challenges have arisen from myself to my children and their illnesses, and how they are. And I've had a lot, personally, I felt I've had a lot to deal with in terms of sorting my own mental health out along the way, which has been quite a struggle in certain areas. And through that experience, it led me to be able to teach from experience rather than from a book, which I think is a massive requirement in this kind of work. I don't think you can help people heal, help people change if you've not necessarily done the work yourself.
Yeah, I guess that's it's a very poignant point. And do you feel that you went on this journey, you became a clinical hypnotherapist, and you have chosen the path that you've done so to cure yourself, or do you think in the back of your mind you was always going to do it to help others?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question, because when I was young, I wanted to be a doctor. When I was really young, and I went to do my A-levels, and it then became a choice of becoming a doctor or joining a band. And I sort of joined a band and made the wrong choice at the time. And so I've always had that wanting to help people, that healing aspect, I guess, in one way or another. And then it just feels like I've done a full circle where it wasn't about healing myself then. It was about understanding people and why they go through the problems that they do. So it moved away from me and onto other people eventually. But a great question. But I do feel that I've always, through my experiences, it's made me more sensitive, I guess, to other people's problems, which I find is a positive in helping other people change faster.
Definitely. So would you say you're on this huge mission now to help as many people as possible in various ways? Because I can assume that some people that you help, may not have mental health issues or any issues. They just want to be able to dig deeper into their own abilities and archives to be able to, be that little bit better every day.
Yeah, 100%. I actually started off as a trauma hypnotherapist about 3 or 4 years ago now. really concentrating on trauma-related diseases, autoimmune diseases, IBS, and in all honesty, it can get quite intense. Depends on what you believe in, but a lot of it is quite deeply energetic work. And it's because it was quite intense, I thought, what else can I do to help people, to help entrepreneurs? So although I still do the work, I also help people get better. I also help people improve, become more efficient. So it's not all about the negative, and it also throws in the positives as well.
Perfect. So
Do you know? Sorry, yeah.
I was going to say, so how does hypnotherapy work?
Well, hypnosis has been around probably for thousands of years, back to the sleep temples of Egypt, probably even further. And it was just always called something else throughout the ages. And there's a lot of misconceptions about hypnosis. Some people think that it's mind control. Some people think that they can't be hypnotized. Hypnosis is a natural state. We're in and out of hypnosis every day. If we're driving in our car and we are thinking about what we're having for tea, we're not concentrating on the road, and our subconscious mind takes over. We fall into a hypnotic state. Or if we go and watch a movie, and maybe when we're younger and we come out thinking that we're Superman, or that we can move buildings or whatever, and we get lost in the movie, in the storyline and the emotions, that's hypnosis. Hollywood are the best hypnotists in the world because they take us on that emotional journey. And the actual definition of hypnosis is the use of your imagination and a state of focus. So all hypnosis is a deep state of focus and the use of your imagination. But it's at that point where part of your brain can open up and allow changes to happen behind the scenes.
I've never thought of it that way.
Most people haven't. There's lots of misconceptions about it. Lots of misconceptions. And back in the 70s and 80s, and people remember, I've forgotten his name, Paul McKenna. Yeah. Obviously nowadays it's Darren Brown. Darren Brown's show, if you know of Darren Brown, he's a stage magician and hypnotist. 70-80% of his show is hypnosis. Yeah. And it's all real. Hypnosis is real. But it's all situational. You wouldn't get up on stage at a stage hypnosis show, if you didn't want to, you're going to do something if you get up on stage. So you wouldn't get up. If you didn't want to do something, you'd sit and stay at the back. So there's always an element of understanding.
I suppose then you have to allow yourself to go into that state. So if you go there with that closed mind and you don't want to be hypnotized and you're going to sit there, then it's probably a lot harder for someone like you to do your job. But if someone's coming to you and wanting help and wants to change, they're going to be more open to going into that hypnotic state, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, if you were to sit there and fight it and say, you're not going to hypnotize me, well, of course, I'm not going to hypnotize you. I mean, you wouldn't even try because you just closed off to the idea. And we all experience hypnosis every day. So for someone to say, oh, you can't hypnotize me, it's irrelevant because we all experience it. People just don't understand it and they don't realise that's what they're going through.
All right.
I think as well, I was quite sceptical at first until you come to my event, and then I saw the room engage with it, and then I took you up on like a 3-hour session, and I was a bit sceptical at first. So I was like, oh, what's it going to bloody do here? And actually, I found it really valuable to the point where I've kind of gone, I don't know if I want to open up this can of worms, because when you was touching upon your childhood at 13 having a breakdown, I was on like calming medication at 11, and I was having anxiety attacks all throughout my teenage years. I used to spew with anxiety, barely ate anything. It was horrific. And I was on these I had panic attacks constantly, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do here? And I've kind of had to live with it over the years. And then during your session, you touched upon a point where I'd forgotten about. I'd not even thought about it for years, where my anxiety started from. And I think it was as young, we was discussing, wasn't it? I think 3 or 4 it started on, which really quite shocked me because I've got a 3-year-old and I was like, shit, if I was triggered by something as that young, what could be happening to her now? And I don't say this a lot. Everyone knows me real well. I'm not a crier. Don't cry. I'm an angry crier. I'm one of them nutters. I'm an angry crier. Like, if I get really angry, you actually touched a point in my life where I cried in front of you. I was mortified. I was like, oh no, I'm crying is open this sort of can of worms. But actually, the way you delivered it and what you were saying, because you weren't like suggesting anything, you just took me to a place you didn't even know existed. The way you sort of controlled your voice and how fast and slow you spoke and the delivery was like astonishing, really. So I was like, my God, I'm sold. But yeah, definitely, if you've got some trauma that anyone needs to sort of unravel or anything in the life, it's absolutely powerful.
Yeah, and you touched upon quite a few things there where there's different styles of hypnosis, as there is other aspects of work, but the kind of hypnosis that I do is called content-free, where my firm belief is that we all heal ourselves. You know, I'm not Jesus. There's only so many things I can do with the mind. There's only so many things I can do with the subconscious mind. And we all have it in us. And this can sound quite spiritual, but I'm quite an empiricist. I'm quite a scientist at the end of the day. I'm an atheist, but I do believe that we have whatever we need inside of us already. We just need to be shown how to get back there. We're all born free of all fears. Well, most fears. We're all born free of all traumas, unless it's passed down hereditary. So everything that we learn in our first 7 approximate years of life stays with us. And that's where we learn all these things. So if we learn all these things, then why can't we unlearn them and go back? It's how trauma works, predominantly.
Very interesting. Very interesting, and you're not the first person to say that. Like the things that happened in the first 7 years of your life, you know, so sort of like financial education and financial behaviours, and spending habits, and all of these things you can pick up from a really young age. And it's not until recently I've been like looking into sort of these things and my relationship with food, or my relationship with like alcohol, like binging, and happily spend 200 quid on a night out, but not a 50 quid on a shirt. And it's because growing up, I grew up in a situation where there weren't a lot of money, but everyone always wanted to have a good time. So having a good time was acceptable, and stuff like that. And it's crazy. It's only been recently, the last year, that I've actually been looking at a lot of this stuff, and it's mad how you realise that it all stems from when you were a lot younger.
It's really interesting you say that, because it's a really important point. Drugs, alcohol, sex, money. When you really break it down, it all revolves. It's all the same thing. We're all trying to fill a void that we feel inside of us by masking it in one way or another. Be it smoking, be it having a few more drinks than we should do, or we know is better than we know better, kind of thing. And thoughts about eating. It's not about food. Problems with eating and restricting our diet or overeating is nothing to do with food. It's all to do with emotions. And once we learn the emotional content around those areas, all these things start to resolve themselves. The only thing that I don't touch on is drugs, because obviously the body can have, after effects when we're coming off drugs and things like that. But in terms of like the emotional side of overeating, undereating, smoking, I don't do them things anymore, because that's not my field of work. I'm more entrepreneurial based now, but
yeah,
I still come across them all the time with entrepreneurs. It's just part of their life as well, and it all boils down to very similar things. You'd be shocked as when you break it all down. It's nothing to do with the things that we're worried about. It's nothing to do with alcohol. It's nothing to do with smoking. We're doing it for a reason. It's just a symptom rather than the main problem.
Deep, isn't it, when you think of it like that, and you just think, what is it? Because like Heidi said, you've got a 3-year-old, I've got a 3-year-old, she's almost 4, I've got another 1-year-old, and as a parent, you just think, how can I make sure they grow up, like, in inverted commas, normal? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I've had a normal childhood, I've had a normal childhood, but then you still think there's obviously some sort of subconscious thingies there that make me, when I go out, maybe want to binge or overdrink or do X, Y, Z. Do you know what I mean?
It's fascinating because most people that I see, the first thing they say is, well, why am I doing this? I've had a normal childhood. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? It's not about having a normal childhood. It's about, when we're children, it's about our perception of the world. So, two children can experience the same thing and react completely differently. And the study's done where I was reading about one where there's a car accident and two people see it, two witnesses. One witness signs off work for 6 months through trauma from watching the accident. The other one continues to work and is unaffected. But why is that?
I suppose it's a neurological response, isn't it, that you get from impacts and traumas. And you just sort of raised a point there. And then I know, well, I've read like this story or something online, and it's about two brothers. Their dad's an alcoholic, and one of them grows up, becomes an alcoholic after watching his dad be one. But then the other, totally teetotal, never touches a drop, becomes a successful business person and everything like that. And it's, they both grew up in the same environment, same family unit, but it's how they interpret and perceive them things differently.
Yep, 100%. And it's interesting you talked about, the podcast with Stephen Bartlett, because when entrepreneurs come to me and they've got problems, the very first thing I will say to them is, usually, depending on their personality as well, I'll say to them, what are you running from? Why are you striving so hard as an entrepreneur? What are you trying to get away from? Or what are you trying to get towards? Because every entrepreneur, 99 out of 100, has a story. The same as a therapist. I get it all the time. What's your story? Why did you want to become a therapist? Why did you want to become a change worker? What happened in your life? Well, it's the same for an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur who overworks, who will damage their body because they are driven so much to achieving, who want to succeed at all costs. It's 99% of entrepreneurs. And it's only in the last couple of years that it's been acceptable to learn to back off and be more balanced, which is essentially what I teach.
I love that, because I love being balanced. I've been trying to be balanced for a while. It's like me and Dan had a chat earlier in the day, didn't we, about how we're sort of feeling at the minute. So, like, my position is I've worked all my life. I've worked my arse off to get to this career point. I'm probably the highest I'll ever be in a career. I'm a qualified leader and manager, etc. And then I'm on the cusp of kind of spinning it off to go into entrepreneurship, where you don't really need any qualifications, really. And then at the weekend, I went for a massage and it asked me my profession. And I had a massive identity crisis, like, what's my profession? And I said to my husband, and I went, shall I put property? He went, yeah. And I went, I don't feel like an entrepreneur. I don't feel like a business owner. I don't feel like a business owner. It's so weird to have all these hats and identity. And then you said the same thing, didn't you, Dan? You felt like you was going through something similar.
Yeah. Like, I haven't really shared this yet, but I'd say that I'm not calling it an identity crisis. I'm calling it an identity change. And the reason being is, I've got to try to put some positive spin on it.
Not me,
for the period of time, like, so we've got two young kids. My wife's been on maternity, and it's always like, I've been a breadwinner. I've had that sort of position in the family where I'm, let's say the rock, I'm the breadwinner, and all this sort of thing. And then I went into property full time, which I took a, let's say a pay cut. And then towards the sort of end of it, weren't enjoying the thing that we was doing at the time, the lettings and management, sold that off, gone back to full-time work. But throughout that period, there was lots of various things. I slipped my disc a while ago, so I'm really restricted in what I do physically. I was paralysed in November, and a lot of these things happened around the same time before Christmas, like, leading up to it. I weren't enjoying what I was doing. I couldn't walk. I was paralysed basically for like 19 hours. So I couldn't, I had to get taken to hospital and injection and stuff like that. All of these things built up, and then I was so active in property, was doing all the networking meetings. You see me all over social media. I had my own podcast, all of these things, and it just all fell off a cliff. I lost passion for everything, and that took a toll really, and it has done in my personal life. I've always been this really positive, upbeat person, but because of loads of things happening at once, that restricted me. I was like, wow, who am I now? Do you know what I mean?
100%, 100%. And I think,
and I'm like, where's it come from? Because I'm always this positive person. I'm always, this is my position. This is X, Y, Z. And it's like now, I'm not the gym goer anymore. I'm not always at the property events. I'm not always doing this property stuff. It's like all of that, I feel it's probably me. It hasn't been taken away from me. I've just let it go. And it's like, fuck, what am I doing now? And like I say, I haven't been the most upbeat person, which has obviously had a knock-on effect. And I've recognised it. We spoke about it. So but it's just crazy to think that no matter where you are in life, everyone probably look at me and think, fucking hell, I was doing terrific. And it's probably say, if I feel down, like the most down I've ever felt in my whole life. I've never ever experienced anything like this. And it's crazy. That was really long-winded and a bit deep for a podcast, but
it's fascinating because everyone's got a story, and I hear this kind of stuff all the time. And people are so intense on themselves. People beat themselves up so much, and it's just like saying, how would you talk to your best mate? Would you treat yourself in the same way that you treat your best mate, kind of thing? Or are you more caring for yourself? Why aren't you more caring for yourself? Understanding that entrepreneurship is a cycle. You're riding a wave. You go up, you crash. You go up, you crash. Hopefully, the idea is that you crash less and less as you're going up.
Yeah.
But it's a cycle that we all go through. I mean, it goes a lot deeper in terms of like, because I'm fascinated by quantum physics and how it helps in identity and stuff like that. But ultimately, life is a wave, and we are riding that wave. And it's about who we're becoming. To be that person who you want to be, you have to be a different person. Literally. Your future self is different from who you are now. And it's just a case of, well, there's quite a lot to it, but basically you need to reverse engineer, well, where am I going to be? What kind of person do I need to be? Where am I now? What needs to change?
Yeah, and I suppose, like you say, people put a lot of pressure on themselves. I certainly put a lot of pressure on myself to, be the way I am, this positive, upbeat person in the house who provides, who, who's the best dad in the world, who does this, who does my businesses, runs property. And you put so much pressure on yourself. And it's like, if that starts to change and you change, you're like, why? Do you know what I mean? And you think, why? I've got no reason to change. So I think it's important. And like you say, what would you say to your mate? Like, it's fine. You're finding new things. You're doing new things. So I suppose, yeah, it's a crazy one, isn't it?
All these things are lessons, aren't they? We have to try them to see how it pans out. But ultimately, you've got to remember that. I forgot what I was going to say then. That you can't be positive all the time. For every positive, there's a negative. For every up, there's a down. It's you cannot be positive all the time. And I think when people think they'll hear on social media all the time, or think positive, act positive, it's a load of bullshit at the end of the day. No one can do that. Yeah, we can try and do it all the time. It's going to result in fucking disaster. 100%. Pardon my French.
That's fine.
Definitely swear here. I think I overegged my negative social media, just to be too honest, to give myself some sort of blanket and permission to go, just swear and just be a bit negative. And then people, once you over deliver, happy days, that's your service. But like at the weekend, fucking, it was so stressful at the weekend. We had a tenant lock himself out 1,000 times as usual. Absolute pleb. Was going to Harrogate for the weekend. I don't think I even went to Harrogate for very long, because by the time we got there, had our spa, went out for meal. Then my kids were kicking off the next day, so I had to leave early. Then they had a show. So it's like a spiraling mental hamster wheel that I never want to be on. But like, I nearly did a social media post to say, dear tenants, dear guests, dear investors, dear friends, dear family, dear everybody, just fuck off. Leave 2 minutes. I don't want to talk to you. And the amount of messages I'd ignored, because I was just like, I don't work 24 hours, leave me. But I had a tenant, we'd politely moved her into a house. She moved from one house to another house, and we did it on a Saturday for her. And then she said, she rang us up at midnight to say she didn't like her bed. It's like, you're taking the piss. Go to sleep. Don't work 24 fucking hours a day, you nutcase. No. So for me, it's like just been dead honest with people to go, I have boundaries, respect them, and getting people to sort of respect that is interesting.
Yeah, totally. It's all about boundaries. It's all about life boundaries as well. And a lot of things I deal with are people who are people pleasers from trauma, because that's where it normally stems from, and they don't know how to put boundaries in place. They don't know how to deal with boundaries because they've always been about pleasing other people. And when they're shown that that's a recipe for disaster, ultimately, then again the life can start to improve. But also, you talked about, like the hustle culture as well earlier. I absolutely hate it. I hate the hustle culture. Like, you'll see Gary Vee, you'll see... my brain's not on it. I've been in lots of sessions today, sorry. But, like, no, the hustlers who are online.
Grant Cardone and all that.
Yeah, Grant Cardone, that's the one. And they're pushing work 24 hours, work 20 hours a day, sleep for 4 or whatever. And you will always get people who can do that. It'll be the 1%ers. There'll always be somebody who can do it. The other 99% of people don't realise that they are not physically capable of doing that. And ultimately, have you ever been on holiday and you've been stressed to fuck and you've gone on holiday and you get a break, you chill out, you've got a sangria in one hand, you're chilling out, and all of a sudden you're flooded with all these ideas and you can't wait to get back home to implement them. You're on a holiday.
Yeah.
I love an holiday.
Exactly. Well, people don't realise that to move forward, we've got to stop. Take a step backwards. Slow down. Meditate. And it's not about spirituality. It's about letting the brain recalibrate so it can go, okay, I'm de-stressed now. I can actually think again. It's just the way the brain works.
Yeah.
But even going for like an hour walk or something like that, and you don't take your phone, you just walk and you think, like when you have a shower's probably one of the most, I'm going to use the word intimate, but it sounds sexual, doesn't it? Yeah. Disclaimer, I'm not trying to make this sound sexy. Do you know when you're in the shower, something like that, and you just have mad ideas, don't you? Because you're just relaxed. You're having a wash, you relax, and you think, wow, ideas. And same as going on a walk, various other things. Like you're just in the gym, working out in the gym, something like that. You're just like, all these ideas, you think, I've got to get it all down. But like you say, that's when people take the time out of the day. But, all this wake up at 5 a.m. and do your fucking 2 hours meditation and all that shit. Like, fair play. Some people do that. Some people into that. I have nothing against the people that entered it.
100%.
But for me, that ain't me. 5 o'clock, I'm fucking tired all day. 6 o'clock, I can handle.
Yep.
But I'll stay up later.
Yep.
I call it a strategic shower cry. I do that a lot. I used to. And then, but it's one of the reasons I swim on a Monday morning is because it's the start of, so I condensed my hours last year at work and have a Monday off, controversially, because it sets me up for the week. And Monday morning I go swimming. I don't do it for fitness. I do it to be left alone for an hour. And if anyone tries to talk to me, I'm like,
I lock the bathroom door and just scroll on my phone, pretend I'm having a really long wee. That's what I do.
Really long wee, really long poo.
Yeah. Kids, no, they're not coming to the door. Good. 20-minute break.
Excellent.
I think that's a bloke thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. No, but we all need that break, to sort our life out at the end of the day. Look how well life's got in the last 5 years. Social media coming out of our ears, hustle culture, the financial world's gone to shit, and we're not developed enough to cope with everything all at once.
Yeah.
Which is why
Sorry to interrupt. I don't know if this is the right podcast to slag this off on, or whether I'm going to get lynched for saying this, but like,
Probably the latter.
I publicly said anyone who takes an ice bath, gets up at 5 o'clock, and like has 4 hours sleep, fucking repulses me. Like, I can't do it. Get in the bath, chill out, and this again, I'm going to get slagged off for this, but I'll own it. Giving up alcohol when you don't need to. If you've got an addiction, fucking fair enough. Just doing it to put it on social media, to join a bandwagon, to be more productive is mental. Now, I think I've done quite well, and I drink, and I like a beer, and I do it publicly at my event as well. You don't have to give up stuff to be successful.
No,
I agree, but I'll challenge the alcohol thing, and I'll challenge that because I did 3.5 months not drinking, and there was a reason why.
But if you have a
Yeah, it made me feel so much better. But like, this is like a counselling session as opposed to a podcast. If I drink, like, I tend to just continue drinking until I get to a state where I can't remember anything, and that's every time. 99% of the time I drink, I don't remember from a certain period of time, which is binging, isn't it? I binge. I won't have a few beers on the night, and then I won't have 5 pints and stop. So because I was doing that all the time, I was like, right, I need to just take a step back and maybe get some control of this. That's why I did it.
See, I have 3 pints and I'm tipsy, so it's like I think there's a fine line of getting absolutely bladdered every time. Yeah, like I went out for not like I'm not an adult, but I went out for tea on Saturday, and I said I'm going to try a glass of wine. I don't drink wine. I'm going to try a glass of wine, and I had a picture with my wine, and the bloke went, "Would you like a bottle?" I went, "The fucking who orders a bottle?"
I can't drink wine. It sends it.
Oh, it's awful.
Again, if I drink too much wine, I just black out and don't remember a thing. So.
Oh, I wish I could have.
There's a theme here. To be fair, it don't matter what alcohol it is. It's just I'm not controlling it. That's what it comes down to.
totally.
But I guess, we've sort of steered away from the hypnotherapy thing. Like I said, we've just opened up a can of worms here. It's more of a counselling session for us than it is an interview with Chris. But
Chris needs, after this is like, oh, what have I got?
Because I've already done the fucking sessions all day. I didn't need another one.
The thing is, you know what? I'm going to change the subject completely here, but it's really weird. I was dating all last year, just dating in general, and it happens all the time when you're in this profession, and you mention. I try and avoid telling people what I do sometimes, especially girls, who I'm meeting or I'm dating, because they just open up to you. They're just literally verbal diarrhea about the problems, and I don't want to help. It's not my place to obviously help them. I'm trying to word that right.
You're not there in a professional sense. You're there in a leisurely dating sense.
Exactly. And
at least you get all of the baggage early on, and you can be like, "Nah, not for me."
Love it. Like, nutter.
Yeah.
But it's opened my eyes because people just do it. They just don't think about it. It's just like, boom, it's out there. It's really weird, really weird.
It is crazy because of what I said about my identity thing and how things have changed. And I only literally mentioned it briefly to Heidi earlier, and probably been going on for a bit. And it's hit me hard a few days. I've not spoken to anyone about it. Obviously, I have my wife and stuff like that. But like you say, I guess problem shares, problem halved. And when you feel like you're in a professional setting or someone who can maybe just give you a bit of a high level view and just be like, "Dan, you fuck, mate." That's what it is. But no. No, but in terms of like what I was going to ask then is like, do you have any sort of case studies about names and real situations and things like that? Like how, you've helped people, if you've got like testimonials or sort of, let's say results,
Well, yeah. I mean, they diversify from one extreme to the other. I've had people start working with me and within 6 months they're running extremely successful businesses, where like 6 months earlier they were in complete and utter disarray in their life. So that's how powerful and quick the work can be. Don't get me wrong. Not everyone comes to start £1 million company. Some people come to improve their relationships as entrepreneurs with their wife, with their husband, with their children is a big one. Because obviously as entrepreneurs, we want to push so much that sometimes it can start to break things at home. Relationships with our kids, and I've probably been there, in all honesty, and to see people's relationships change with their children. I was once talking to a guy who wanted to sign up. We were chatting away. He did eventually sign up, but he was extremely wealthy. His wife had just divorced him. He'd lost his house. He'd lost his kids. And he was depressed as fuck, in a nutshell. Because all he'd done is focus on money all his life. He got the money and lost everything else around him. And we actually worked together for quite a while. And the family are back together, unbelievably.
Wow.
It's awesome, that, to be fair. What a fucking good outcome.
Yeah, 100%. Because the thing is, when we talk about entrepreneurship and getting better, it's not just about the money. To me, that's a completely separate issue. It's always about the balance, finding out who we are. Because I think in the past few years, people are more open about finding themselves, finding their identity, finding out why we're going on this journey. And it's more talked about. Like, if we'd have talked about going on journeys 10 years ago, we'd have been told to shut the fuck up. You know, what are you going about? Kind of thing. You know, but it's just like anything nowadays. It's much more open, I think, than it used to be.
I prefer that. And I got to a stage where my first year, I've only been in business 2.5 years. And my first year of business, I did really well, but I was burning out like ridiculous.
Yep.
And I went through that cycle of pissing people off and that sort of thing. Like I was here, but I want present, if that makes sense. I think you'll probably appreciate that. And like this weekend, I had voice notes from investors. I had tenants requesting shit. I had all sorts of stuff. And I went, do you know what? It's not important. It used to be to me because I didn't want to annoy anybody or upset anybody or deliver a shit service. But now I've got to the point where the most important thing is my mental well-being. You could offer me £1 million, happy days, but actually I'd rather just be living in the moment and happy. And I was saying to my husband this weekend, if this is morbid, if I died tomorrow, I've lived a great year. I've had a great life. I've had a great year. I've not regretted anything. Like we've gone away. We've had holidays. We've done stuff, and it's not to the detriment of my business. But if I was Steve Jobs or whatever, and I had that, you regret the health, don't you, and the well-being and that moment stuff. So it's taken me a good long time to say I'm going to ignore that today because I'd rather be doing this.
I think you take it out on the people closest to you, didn't you? Like that's what happens. Like the people who are closest to you, who are your biggest fans and support, tend to be the ones that feel it the most. And I remember when I first started out, Saturday mornings, working late evenings, and all this sort of stuff. It's like, you know, you're like, I'm doing it. And I remember I always just say, I'm doing it so we can have a better life. I'm doing it so we can have a better life. Like build this massive property portfolio, never have to worry about money and all that. And at the end of the day, you know, how far do you go? Because if you're doing it for all of them, they're not going to see you. They're not going. They just want daddy. They just want their husband, or they just want mummy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's that presence there and then. Like on the school run, I've started walking my kid to school, and I have done for quite a while. And there'd be a times where I was on my phone texting people or on the phone, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? What an idiot. And now I'm just like, no, I'm present for that 20 minutes or whatever, 15 minutes. And I take her to the park for 5 minutes and that sort of thing. And that means way more than getting back to an investor who's waffled on for a bloody 9-minute voice note or whatever.
100%.
By the way.
100%. I mean, I do a lot of work around. I do a lot of work around money, and I call it money manifestation. It's a topical word, obviously. Some people don't believe in any of it, and some people do. But it's becoming more and more popular in business. But the more that people work on that kind of thing, work on the money blocks, and work on why they can't make more money, why the turnover's stagnant, why they are just going round and round in the same kind of wheel and not getting any further, they realise it's nothing to do with money. And when they realise that, that's when the changes start to happen. And again, you look at overeating, you look at undereating, you look at alcoholism, whatever, and it's all about self-worth. Money works in a very similar way. It's never about the money. Fascinating subject, really.
Yeah, I mean, we can probably record this for about 6 hours and we could unravel our whole histories, our upbringings and fucking all sorts, but maybe not. Because you're like, no, I don't. No, to be fair, it's eye-opening because, like, the mind is an amazing thing, and psychology, and you've touched on it, NLP, neuro linguistic, fucking hell, I can't remember. P, is it patterns? Neuro
Programming.
linguistic programming. That's it. Like the way you say things and the certain words can influence the way people think. And I did some sales training recently, and I asked the trainer, do you use NLP? Have you studied NLP? And he's like, no, I haven't, because I believe that's unethical, because you can change people's beliefs. But obviously that's in the sales background.
Yeah.
That's like,
Yeah.
But in your case, you're doing it for the greater good, to benefit and change someone's mindset. And you talk about manifestation. And before I started property, and I used to watch stuff, and everyone's like, positive mindset this, you got to, believe you can do it. And I just used to think, what a load of shite, right? But then, fucking hell, you listen to some of my podcasts, and like, when you actually get into it and you think, no, I am doing this. I am trying to be more positive, and I am, you talk about manifestation. I do think that, things like law of reciprocity and having a positive outlook on things, it's not that people give you opportunity, it's that you notice it.
Yep.
And Darren Brown, I think, did an experiment, and you might know more about it than I did, years ago. And it was this guy saying that he has no fucking luck in the world. And Darren Brown set up this huge experiment on a street with the help of his friends, and he gave him so many opportunities. Like, if he bought a lottery ticket, it would have been like a fake winning lottery ticket. He pulled a fiver across the road in front of this guy, and he missed it. And all this stuff because he was like already looking down on payment on his phone or something. He just weren't open to
the
that positive mindset and the possibilities. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I didn't realise that. I might have to go and have a look for it.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Darren's work is phenomenal because his stage shows are probably about 80% hypnosis, and obviously he's a magician and he's a very good showman. So his work is a combination of lots of things, but the work that he does is very eye-opening to the people who don't understand or are interested in this kind of work. Not everyone understands this field. It's not everyone needs to. So when they see live performances of doing things like that, I think just Darren's brought it to the forefront of the public with the work that he does on stage and in documentaries.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's very interesting.
With your work, Chris, what's how often do you see people? What's that look like?
Nowadays I do individual therapy sessions where some people have 2, 3, 4 sessions, which is sort of like one half of the business. And then I have the coaching side of the business where we do programs of between 8 and 12 weeks of working together, which is more the entrepreneurial side, which is all about getting an overall understanding of life, where we are, why we are where we are, and how to improve and get better faster. So it's two sides to the business, the entrepreneurial and the more therapeutic side.
That makes sense. What's this is probably a bit personal. How do you look after yourself when you're doing this? You must hear a lot of stuff.
It's an interesting one. When I first started it, doing this work, again, when I started, I focused on trauma, which is one reason why I moved away from the full-time trauma, because you don't realise when you become a therapist or you become a change work person, it's all energy. And whether you're working on Zoom, whether you're working in person, that energy will fuck you up massively. And people will say, well, what do you mean? How can it affect you? Because you can quite easily take on board somebody's negativity and pain. I used to walk around, no word of a lie, like a zombie, half dead all the time. Until, obviously, I was mentored at the time by extremely good hypnotherapists and coaches. And they always used to say, you've got to protect yourself, got to protect yourself, got to protect yourself. It's not just an imaginary thing. It's not just a make-believe spiritual thing. This actually happens. And it's a case of, so to answer your question, it's a case of learning to detach. Ultimately, you have to keep that separation. You've got to keep the professionalism there. And there's techniques you can do to bring up protection between you and the person that you're dealing with as well, and limiting your time. I started off thinking I could do 5-6 sessions a day. If I'd have done that for 6 months, I'd be dead, 100%, without a shadow of a doubt. So now I'll limit myself to 2, possibly 3 sessions a day. And it's also the reason why I do the coaching, because coaching is less work, less time involved, but more personal attention.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? And you touched on that about negativity and things like that. Like, one negative person can bring down a room of 5 negative people. And if you're being negative, or people around you always being negative, like if people who watch the news, you can say that you're probably not negative, but fucking hell, all that is negative.
Yeah.
So if you're always watching the news, like the world's a bad place, and shit's going on, and you never hear about all the happy stuff. And like I say, that all that negativity stuff and being surrounded by negative people and things like that will make them gradually become negative over time. It's like if I'm not my best self, and if I'm being negative, and that it affects the other people in the room, your wife, your kids, you notice a difference. And then when you're like your best self, it's crazy. It is massive. Negativity probably holds more power, I think, in changing atmospheres than positivity does.
It's true. I mean, you've only got to look back and ask yourself, what is the word that we are told the most growing up?
Don't.
No. And the thing is, we're told, don't do that. Don't touch that. Be careful. No, you can't have this. No, you can't have that. 90% of the time, it's conditioned into us. It's just a human conditioning, where there's no wonder that we are predominantly negative in life, and that we're trying to break out of it, because that's what we're conditioned to be from a young age.
Yeah. It's all about being safe and not doing things, isn't it? It's like taking risks. You're always like, go to school, stay in your job, don't take risks, and you always, like you say, you have to train yourself not to do that.
Yeah. Not to, well, that goes down a whole other road of, like, are we being conditioned on purpose or whatever? But in general, we all follow the rules. We're sort of taught 9 to 5. We're sort of taught to go through school till we're 16 or 18 nowadays. Get a job, be happy, get married, and die. In a nutshell, that is the norm. And then entrepreneurs are seen as out of the ordinary, because we want to build something for ourselves.
Would you like to coach my 3-year-old? I think you'd be very helpful.
I've been there. Mine are now 16 and 12, and it's so much easier nowadays.
Yeah, 7-year-old I'm all right with, but the 3-year-old, everything you've just said, I'm like, I kind of need some help with that one, I think. Like, walk around with some sage, trying to like calm it down a little bit.
Oh, bless.
Me, not her. Bloody hell.
It's crazy, because I've seen loads of like videos on Reels and TikToks. It's all about like kids learn more by just being outside in the wild, exploring and running around, and not being told no, because then you're not allowing them to express themselves. And up until I think about that 7-year-old age, everything they learn and everything they see is through imaginative play.
Yep.
If you're stopping that, you're stopping their imagination run wild and stopping their development and things like that. So it's fucking nuts, in it, when you think about it.
True. And
it is.
Like, the first 7 years of life, the best way of describing it is we're like a sponge. And some people will say that we're walking around in hypnosis for the first 7 years, where when we get older, we develop what's called a critical factor, where it's like a guard on the door of our brain. You're not coming past. The first 7 years of life, there is nothing there. Whatever we see, we absorb. Whatever we see from our parents, we absorb. It's why a lot of people have similar behaviours to their parents. We don't sit and think, right, I'm going to do that, I'm going to act like that. It's straight into our subconscious mind, and we do it without even realising.
Mm.
What on earth have I done to my 3-year-old then already? Like, I'm trying to think if I've dropped her or something. So, like, something's
I'm going to get on the phone to my parents in a minute. So, what happened in my life between 0 and 7? Just so I can explain my fucking... No, it's okay.
My
I'm painting out like I've got mad mental health issues and I'm fucking a binger and all this. Like, that is not the case. You know?
No, it's not.
It's not the case, but I've literally, like, it's how it sounds.
Don't get me wrong, things can happen after that age, obviously.
Yeah.
Things can happen after the age of 7, and they get stuck, they get locked, All that we do is develop stories over life. From the day that we're born, everything is a story. We tell ourselves. If we are scared of public speaking, it's because we've developed a story that we're scared of public speaking. And then it becomes a belief system. So ultimately, to change the fear, we start to reverse the process.
Yeah, definitely. So, here's another question for you, bit deep. Do you plan ahead? If you've got like a 12-month plan, do you just go with the flow? What sort of life like for you now?
Life, yeah. Everyone thinks that when you're a change work person and you've got all these techniques and all this experience of working with people, that everyone's life's in order, everybody's perfect. Obviously, there's no such thing as perfection. I am much more chill nowadays. I used to be heavily driven. And like you said, Heidi, the first year, I did very similar and burnt myself out dramatically. And I thought, why the hell am I doing this? I'm doing this for a reason to help other people, but how am I going to be any help when I'm burning myself out? So you might have read the Mark Manson's book, Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Great book if you've not read it. Where the paradox is that the more we learn to be grateful and appreciative and not giving a fuck about anything and not always trying to drive for what we want, things start to become easier and things start to happen. It's about reducing that expectation. So I'm a great believer in that in my life nowadays, in terms of reducing expectations, flowing with the ebbs and flows of life and know what it throws at us, because we're always going to get shit. Whether we know how to battle that shit or not, it's still going to come. And I'm in much more of a comfortable position now. There's been a lot of life changes in my life over the past year. So life changed quite a lot. And I'm actually just enjoying life, where I'm being more in the present, much more in tune with my kids, much more in tune with my life, not worrying about, am I going to be with this girl for the rest of my life kind of thing? Am I going to be married again? That kind of stuff. Just much more in the moment. And I think it's done me the world of good.
Like that. That is awesome. Do you have any, I like a book recommendation as well, so thanks for throwing that in there. Do you have any advice for anybody going forward? Do you carry advice, or is it just a case of chilling and...
It all depends on your life goals, what you want to do with your life, whether it's entrepreneurs listening to this, whether it's just the general public. It's definitely a case of, my advice would be, depending on if you suffer with anything in particular, is starting to detach from the scenario and look at yourself as a third party. What would you say to your best friend going through that scenario? Can you visualize yourself looking at yourself? What would you say to yourself in that scenario? What would you say to your younger self? Can you go back to your younger self and have a chat with your younger self about how life has turned out? Because ultimately, most people are 7-year-olds walking around in 30-year-old, 40-year-old bodies. Most people haven't done the work. So I would say if anyone wants to change, it's starting off asking themselves lots of questions about why they are like they are. That's a great fundamental part of finding out. Maybe it's doing a bit of meditation. Maybe it's questioning themselves about why they act the way that they do, until they start to get answers coming out. And it's a great big puzzle. It's part of my work, but the results are phenomenal if you're willing to put in the work. And it's like anything. Some people, don't get me wrong, some people can change overnight, click of the fingers and they've changed. It's very rare. A lot of people have to put in the work. Hypnosis isn't, you're not Jesus, you're not God. No, you can only change so much in someone's life. People have to be able to do it for themselves and understand that it's a process that they've got to go through.
And I guess to add to that, I'm speaking like I'm an expert, I ain't, but a continual process because, things that happen in your life until a certain point, you can, let's say, heal yourself or process that and change your ways, but it doesn't mean that nothing's going to happen in 2 years that's going to
Exactly.
fucking turn your life upside down or rock the boat a bit where you're going to have to, recalibrate
Yep.
and go back. So, okay, my behavior now is because of this event 2 years ago as opposed to what it was like 10 years ago. So I guess it's something that you can always do to always better yourself.
100%. Two things I would say is learn to calm your nervous system. A lot of people do it through meditation. A lot of people do it through walking, and learn how to reframe things. So if something happens, you reframe it into a positive. There's always a positive out of every situation. You just got to look. Sometimes you got to look a bit deeper for it. Sometimes.
And how do you help uncover that with people? Is it through questioning or?
It's Again, when I'm working one-to-one with people, it's about a lot of it is intuitive coaching, where you start to understand people because of the variety of people that you work with. You're going off body language, you're going off how people act, you're going off how people speak, and then through hypnosis, you're dealing with another part of the brain which has access. The subconscious mind has access to everything because it runs the show. Something so powerful, what can keep you alive? Like, it controls your heartbeat, it controls how fast you breathe, but it also controls all your memories. It's extremely powerful.
That's true. It's like when when you think, oh, what was I going to say? What was I going to say? And then you start talking about something else. Your subconscious brain is still thinking about what you was trying to think about, hence why you then remember it.
Yep, 100%. If you say to yourself, oh, I'll come back to it in a minute, it'll come to me in a minute. 9 times out of 10, it'll come to you. I do it all the time. At the moment, I've got a shocking memory. And
Same.
I think it's just like workload, probably, with me at the minute. And I'll forget the names of the but again, it's one of those things. When you're nice and relaxed and you're on holiday, it's flowing all the time. And when I've had a stressful week or a really busy week or you're tired, you just can't find the words in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Mine translated into a dream last night. So I was like, I didn't think I needed a trade or something. And in my sleep, I actually found the trade I needed and woke up and thought, that's the person I need. I was like,
It is.
like, oh, it's so bad. And I was like, why am I dreaming about solutions to shit in the day? Yeah, useful anyway.
It is crazy though, isn't it? It's like you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you think that's the fucking thing I've been thinking about, and then
I
know. Perfect.
Definitely, because a great process is if you've got something that you really want to get the answer to, what you're like, again, like a trade, for example, what you're after. You ask yourself a question before you go to sleep, and your subconscious mind will kick in when you go to sleep, and you've got 7 or 8 hours for it to stew on it, and it will be working away. So it's quite often that's why we wake up with ideas, because so if you ask ourselves a question before we go to sleep, you can answer that question as you go through the night and you wake up in the morning. It's a great process.
Oh, I'm going to try that tonight.
Yeah. Whilst we're talking about questions, we did a podcast yesterday, and I'm conscious that you've done various sessions today, and you're probably knackered. But we did a thing yesterday, and ChatGPT come up. So the world of AI, and we're going to do a feature each episode. Is I'm going to type a question into ChatGPT, saying, "Tell me a great podcast question to ask her XYZ, depending who the guest is." So I've got a question for you, as provided by ChatGPT.
Okay.
You've probably uncovered some of it,
Yeah.
but it's quite an interesting one. Without going too deep, it can be a quick fire 10, 20-second answer. But what are some common misconceptions about hypnotherapy that you frequently come across, and how would you debunk them?
Okay. Obviously, people think it's mind control, but ultimately, you're in control at all times. If you wish, you could open your eyes at any time. You are not asleep. You are not unconscious. Misconceptions. A lot of religions think that it's evil, which is just a conception of the religion itself. And again, that comes from the stories that were brought up being told. Hypnosis is evil. Mind control is evil. Hypnosis is nothing like the movies. Hypnosis is portrayed quite often negatively in movies, whereas people will come for sessions and say, that's not what I was thinking it was going to be. Some people don't even realise they've been hypnotised. Yet during the process, in fact, the session before this, I've had an incredible session. It's been ridiculous.
That you called this a session was quite funny.
Obviously, no names mentioned, but he went into hypnosis for the first time, and again, it's all about energy. All this work is about energy, and there's lots of trauma involved in the past, and he needed to release it in a nutshell. And because trauma is energy, we can imagine it coming out of our body. We can cough. Coughing is quite common in bringing up energy. And this guy started burping and wanted to throw up while completely not unconscious, but while completely in a hypnotic state. And he was burping and burping, and it was getting worse and worse. And he had so much to come up, it was unbelievable. And he woke up and he said, I didn't even realise I was hypnotised. Yet his body was going through all of that. He said, I didn't feel that deep. And I said, depth is a misconception. Some people will talk about depths. You're either in hypnosis or you're not, is my belief. And because hypnosis is natural, we can be sat driving the car hypnotised, yet we're not completely asleep. We're not completely with our eyes closed, So it's a misconception. We don't have to be in a deep, deep trance to change. And that was a classic example tonight. He didn't even realise how what he was doing, in a nutshell. So there are a lot. My job is about education, because a lot of people are reluctant that they won't be able to open their eyes. That they'll get a good one is getting stuck in hypnosis. I hear that all the time. Can I get stuck? Well, the answer is no, because you're in control all the time. Again, it's not mind control. I can't control you. I guide you to where you need to be.
That's good. That's a good way of looking at it. So when someone says that every time they make a noise, you'll cluck like a chicken, is that all bullshit?
No, the answer is no. And so in a stage show, say you've got 100 people. Yeah. The hypnotist is looking for the 10 most suggestible people in that audience. The 10 most suggestible people will be the people who have that kind of personality where if they got up on a stage, they wouldn't mind doing something anyway.
Yeah.
But because they're also suggestible, quite often they can't remember doing it. But they have the personality that would do it in the first place. If you're an introvert and you're hiding at the back, you would not get up on that stage. So, yes, it's real. And quite often people can't remember because they're that highly suggestible, yet they're in control at all times. It's a bit of a paradox.
Yeah, interesting. Fantastic. Well, listen, my mind's blown anyway. It's been a powerful, interesting episode. I've spoken to various people like to talk about mindset and life coaches and fitness coaches, but I've never ever entered the world of hypnosis, hypnotherapy, so just hearing from your point of view, how you help people, what it can achieve, and just some of the stories. And I said, I fucking offloaded, so it must work. But genuinely, it's been fantastic having you on and really, really insightful.
It's been great. Really enjoyed it.
Massive thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Just our closing thing. I'm going to put you on a spot here now. We like to now start doing a charity shout out. So is there a charity that's close to home that you'd like to give a shout out to that we can draw attention to, or anything you can acknowledge like that?
I not specifically, but my eldest has got Asperger's, so I'm always when I can, fundraising for autistic charities. So there isn't one in particular, but I'm all for children's charities in general.
Fantastic.
Amazing, thank you. Awesome. Well, massive thanks for coming on, sharing that. I feel really chilled that you've been on, to be honest, so thank you very much. Chilled me out.
No worries, I've enjoyed it. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome, good. Thank you. But yeah.
How do we find you, Chris? How do people find you? We know where to find you. We invited you on, but
you can find me on Facebook under Chris Knight. My website is ChristopherDeanKnight.com. That's my main port of call for people. And I run the Prosperous Business Club on Facebook for entrepreneurs who want to change.
Fantastic. We'll share the details in the show notes anyway, so people don't have to go hunting. We'll get them in the notes. But like I said, fantastic. Thanks for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and continue what you're doing. You're helping people in an amazing way. So
thank you very much. Thanks for the invite.
If you have found value with this podcast, please hit subscribe and share it with your friends. We value your feedback as well, and we always want to provide you the best content. So like I said, hit subscribe, give us feedback, and we look forward to you listening on the next episode.
Unbelievable! Thank you for joining us this week. We hope we added value to your day. Stay tuned and see you next time for another unbelievable episode. See you next time.